I'm going to show you how to use the SlideMerge feature in Engage. SlideMerge is the next evolution of presentation automation via Excel. So what you want to do is, once you have the Engage tab selected, just click on the Automate button, and you'll see over here the Excel SlideMerge feature. But first, I want to show you what the result might look like. So I've got a presentation here with a title page, and then I've got multiple slides. I've got slides for each city, and on those slides I have the name of the city, an image representing that city, and then a multitude of information for that city. So let me go ahead and show you what that data looks like in Excel. So I'm going to minimize this, and here's the file, performance data. So let me open up this file. And so this is the data that fed that presentation. So you can see I've got different columns of data. So in column B, I have the name of the city. And then you can see that in each column, I have a different city. And as I work my way through the columns, you can see that for each column, I have different data that's going to appear in my presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and close this Excel file. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to close this presentation, and we're going to build this together. I'll show you how to use SlideMerge to create a presentation like this. So the first step is creating a template slide. So let's go ahead and open up this PowerPoint file. I've already started one. And I should mention that this is a more advanced feature. So we're going to be going through a lot of different things that you can do with this feature. We're going to be linking up data. We're going to be linking up infographics, images. We're going to be pulling return values from APIs. So we're going to be doing a multitude of different things. So let's go ahead and start with the template slide. So what I've got here is I've got a regular PowerPoint presentation here. I've got a title slide, and this will be my template slide. This will be the slide that I link up and that gets repeated throughout my presentation. So think of SlideMerge the same way as MailMerge, but for presentations. So what I'm going to do is, first you want to create placeholders. So I've already gone ahead and added some donut charts. I've also added some text boxes here for different KPIs. And the other thing I want to do is I want to add that image, if you recall, right over here. So I'm going to add a shape here. I'm just going to add a box right there. And this is where the image will appear. So those images for each city, these are going to be pulling from a folder on my desktop. So let me just go ahead and show you what that looks like. So this is the folder over here. It's on my desktop, and it's called City Images. And within that, I have JPEGs for each one of the cities. And I also have PNGs for this down arrow, this up arrow, and then this no change image. So you can link up PNGs or JPEGs. And I'm going to close this. And let's go back to our presentation here. So this is the template slide. You can have multiple template slides in a presentation. You can have divider slides and then other template slides. But let's just start with this simple example. We'll have one template slide. This will be the slide that repeats. So let's go ahead and click Engage. We'll click Automate, and we'll click on Excel SlideMerge. Okay, so if you've used automation in the past, on the Excel shape link side, this should be fairly familiar to you. So the first step is adding a slide merge. So let's click on this button over here. And the system asks us, well, what's the source file in Excel? So let's go ahead and browse and find that file. So it's performance data. So let's go ahead and link that up. And all the data is on sheet 1. So I'll just click next. And so what it does is that it'll open up that Excel spreadsheet, the one that I shared with you earlier, and it's going to read through all those columns. And what we're going to do is we're going to link up different columns of data to the different shapes on this template slide. And once we tell it to run, it'll just go ahead and create as many slides based on the number of rows in that Excel spreadsheet. So the ID for the city, I don't need this, so I'm just going to ignore it. But the city value, this is something I want to link up. So I'll just click on Map Shape, and I'll map it to this text box over here. So once I've done that, I'll click Link Selected Shape. The city image, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this drop down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to link up the image. So let's go ahead and click image. So I'm going to show you how this works, the mechanics here, as soon as I set this up. But I'm going to select image, and you have a couple options. You can have the system put the image on the top left of that shape, the top right. I can make it the same width, the same height, but in this case, I'm just going to make it the same size. So I'm going to do that. So once I've selected that, I'm going to click on Map Shape, and then I'm going to select this this shape over here, because this is where I want that image for that city to appear. Okay, so Weather API. So this is another interesting feature. So what I'm going to do is in Excel, I have the query string for an API. So I don't want it to read the query string, which is http weather.markido.com/. I want it to return the API return value. So I'm gonna let Engage know that this is a value URL. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to link this here. So I'm going to click Map Shape, and I'm going to link this to perhaps a text box that I'm going to put over here. I'm just going to put this as weather. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right align this, and maybe I'll just put it over here. Okay, so that's selected. So I'm going to click Link Selected Shape. And to show you what this API looks like, let's go ahead in a browser here. Let me just open up this browser. So when I add the name of a city in this API, it's going to return 11 degrees, a few clouds. It's going to return the weather for that city. So that return value here from this API, this is what's going to get written on my presentation. So don't worry if this is all kind of overwhelming. I'm going to make sure to go back and show you exactly the mechanics of this and how this looks in the Excel spreadsheet. But for now, what I want to do is I want to go through the exercise of just linking up these column values to the different shapes on the presentation, just so we get through this. So a couple other things, columns of value, the overall score for this period. So this is a value, so I'm just going to click Map Shape, but this time I'm going to link this to this infographic. So I'm going to link up that selected shape. Overall score last period, I don't want to show that, but I want to show the overall score direction. So again, this will be an image. So let's go ahead and click Image, and I'm just going to make this again same size. But this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to map this shape over here, because what I've got is in Excel, I'll show you in a little bit, but I've got a cell that calculates if the change is positive, so it'll show a certain image of an arrow going up, or if it's negative, it'll show an image of an arrow going down. So that's where I'm going to have that. Cost Performance Index. Same idea. Let's go ahead and map this infographic over here. Schedule Performance Index, same idea. This time we'll do the donut chart down over here. And then we just have a couple other columns of information to link up. So our first output, or KPI, attendance at education event. Let's go ahead and map this correct shape. The next one is participation, job skills training. So let's go ahead and click this shape here. And then we have an outcome here. So let's go ahead and link this one. And then finally, average annual earnings per family. So let's click Map Shape and link it to this text box shape here. Okay, that's fantastic. And then we have the file name, so I don't need to show the file name on the slide. So let's just go ahead and click OK for now. Okay, so now everything is linked up. What we're going to do is let's go ahead and run the SlideMerge. So let's go ahead and click that. And what it's going to do, it's just going to drop this file on my desktop. So let's go ahead and do this. So there's about a dozen or so slides. So it takes on average, so now it's done, but it takes on average about half a second per row of data, so half a second per slide. So you can see now London, Ottawa, New York, and so on. So it grabbed the image, it grabbed all the data, it updated everything. And then this arrow I was telling you about, if there's a change from last period that's negative, it shows the arrow going down. If the change was positive, then the arrow goes up. And you'll also notice the API return value here for the weather getting written here in this text box. So let me go back and show you the mechanics of that Excel spreadsheet and all that source data, just so it makes sense. So let's minimize this, and let's go back to our Excel spreadsheet. So we did a couple different things. So if you recall, that first column of data was ID, and so we didn't want to show that on the slide, so we ignored this one. But the next column was city. This was something that we wanted to link up, and we did. And so images, this is the kind of interesting part as well, and very powerful part. So images is what showed up the image for the city on the slide. So there's two ways of doing this. When we selected image, it let Engage know that you wanted to show not the string, the text string of C:/users and so on, that you wanted to show an actual image. And so what it did is, if it saw a C:/, it knew that it was an image, in this case called london.jpg, in a folder on my desktop, city images. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So there's my desktop. There's the folder called city images. So it went into this folder, and it read the title, the name of that file, and then it put the right file for the right slide. So it put the London JPEG for London and the Los Angeles JPEG for Los Angeles, and so on. And you might recall those down arrows and the up arrows. These were also in this folder. So let's go back to the Excel spreadsheet, and I'll just show you how I did this. When you double click on this cell, you can see that I've used a simple concatenation function here. I've typed out the folder address, but in terms of adding the name of the file, what I've done is I've pulled the name of the city from B2, and then I've just added .jpg. So this made it very easy to create these different strings. The other thing I did here is, you'll notice in this cell for Paris, it's not a location on my hard drive, my desktop. It's actually a location that's online. It's an HTTPS address. So let's go ahead and see what that address looks like. So this is the address here. And so this image here wasn't something that was on my computer. It was something that was online. So you have the power to link and automate via images that are either on your computer or online. Okay, so if we go back here to column D, this is how we did the weather API. So in the instructions we said, again, don't read it as a value, read it as a value URL. So the idea is the return value for the API will get written right on the presentation. So right over here, this is where that return value for the API got written. So if we go back to that Excel file, you can see that in this column, if I just double click here, again, same idea. I use a concatenation function where I've got the address for that API, and we're actually building that query string URL right in Excel. And the way we've built this is I've concatenated this web address, and then I've added on the name of the city based on the value in cell B2 in this case. So it'll add this string plus the name of the city. And so this is the query string URL, and this is what we've done right in Excel. As far as the other rows or columns of data, you can see we've got the overall score for this period, and then we have the overall score for last period. But this is the cell I want to show you, column G, overall score direction. So the function here is, I'll just double click here. But what I've done is I've typed out the string of the folder where I had that up arrow and that down arrow. It's on my desktop and it's in a folder called city images. But the last part, I've got an if then statement. And what I'm saying is if there's been growth, so if the value in E4 is greater than F4, then show the up.png image. But if it's not, then show the down PNG image. And if there's no change, then just show the no change PNG. So in this case, if we look at New York, there was no growth, so it'll show down.png. But if you look at Ottawa up here, you'll see that there was tremendous growth, and so we're going to show the up.png image. So this is very powerful as well. So if we go back to that presentation, in New York there was no growth, and so the down arrow gets shown, but for Ottawa there was tremendous growth, and so the up arrow gets shown. And so this is a very powerful feature because it doesn't just have to be arrows going up or down. It could be any image, any JPEG, any PNG. So let's go back to the Excel spreadsheet. So we have other data over here. But the other thing I want to show you now is in the event that you want to create not just multiple slides within a presentation, but you want to create a template slide for multiple presentations. So imagine, for example, there's a CFO and responsible for the performance results for many different departments, and you want to create a different department or a different presentation for each department. You can do that. So what I've done here is in this column, column N, I've added a file name. And so the other thing I've done is I've created a new folder and I just called it fresh. So this fresh folder doesn't exist. It's not on my desktop. So what it's going to do, I'm going to show you how you can use this to create multiple presentations. But instead of manually renaming them, you can also just name them by using a column in Excel. And so what I've done is the same idea. I've done a concatenation function. And so I want to instruct the creation of these different presentations. I want them to go in a folder. And if it doesn't exist, Engage will write it for you. So it'll create a folder called Fresh. And it's going to add the name. And the name of the file will be Ottawa. So I'm not even going to add .pptx. Engage is smart enough that it'll do that for me. So let's go ahead and close this. And what I can do is I've already saved this version on my desktop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that. And I'm just going to go back to my template slide. So this is my template slide. And then, of course, whenever the data updates in Excel, what you can do is you could just go back to your template slide and just regenerate a new presentation. So let's go ahead and go back to Engage. The first thing I want to do is I want to update this, and I want to actually put the name of the city here as well. So let's go ahead and add a text box. And so maybe what we'll do is, just for effect, we'll put the name of the city over here. So I'm already linked up the name of the city over here. So what you have to do is, even though I've already got that column, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a shortcut to access that file. I'm going to go to Automate, Excel SlideMerge. I'm going to select this source data. And next to Map Columns, I'm just going to click Open Source. So I'm going to open up that source. And what I'm going to do is this, is I'm going to create another column. And I'm going to put this title city. And I'm just going to reference the city from the B column. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And the reason I'm doing this is because it's really a one-to-one relationship when you're linking up the columns to the shapes. So let me go ahead and close this. And I'm just going to add I'm just going to go back here, SlideMerge. This is what I wanted to show you, map columns. So when you click on map columns, it's going to open up all those different columns. So if you remember, we had ID, we had city image, but what we've done is we've added another column. So in this case, we've made it simple. We've just added the same name of the city, but we could have added another data column, another image column. So what you want to do is you want to just click on reload columns. So what that's going to do, it's going to go back to that Excel spreadsheet. It's going to reread the column headers, the information that you have there, and it's going to keep all the connections that you currently have because it can tell by the name of the column header. But it's also going to update it and add any other columns you might have added. So in this case, I've added another column here of information, title city. So I'm going to go ahead and map this shape, and I'm going to map it to the city here on my title page. Okay, so this looks good. So I'm going to click OK. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a couple different things here. So you can also, just like shape link automation, you can change the source. So if ever you needed to change the name of the file or change the location of the file, you could just select that file, click change source, and then reconnect it. You can also disconnect this. But what I want to show you now here is this run SlideMerge. There's two different options. You can add slides in the same presentation. This is what we just did. But you can also create a new presentation for each row of data. So let's go ahead and click on this option and run the SlideMerge. So when we do this, you have two different options. The first option is you can set the file location manually. So let's go ahead and do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this manual. And I'm just going to put this file in this folder. So let's go ahead and do that. And you can see what this will do. So what SlideMerge is doing now is it's going through all that data in Excel, and it's creating about a dozen or so presentations. So I'm just going to let it run. Okay, it's done. So there's 10 presentations that have been created. They were created on my desktop in this folder called manual. So let's go ahead and open. And so you see how it just names them with the default name that you've given it. And then it just adds a -1, -2, and so on. So if I open this first presentation, there's London, and there's the information for London. And if I go back to the next one, if I go to the second one, this is Ottawa. And so there's the information for Ottawa. So this is really useful if you've got, like I said, you want to create different presentations for different departments, different groups, different vice presidents, and so on. But what you'd have to do at this point is you'd have to manually update these with the name of the department or the group or whatnot. So this could be fairly time consuming, and everything shows up in that same folder. So let's go ahead and close this. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go back to Automate, Excel SlideMerge, and we're going to run this SlideMerge. But this time we're going to do option 2. So we're going to set the file location and the name via a column in the data source. So if you recall, in that last column, we added a column called file name. So I'm going to instruct Engage that this is where I want the system to look at for the file location and name of the file. So let's go ahead and select this. So it's going to run the exact same SlideMerge. It's going to create 10 presentations, but it's going to name the presentations based on the information I put in that column in Excel. And it's also going to create a folder if it's not already created. But if it's already created, I'll just use that folder. So let's go ahead and click open. So now I've got a folder called Fresh on my desktop. And in that folder, I have 10 presentations, and they're all named based on the name that I've given them in that Excel spreadsheet in that last column. So now I've got Beijing, and I've got all the Beijing information. What's really useful about this is in this example, I've put these all in the same folder. But if I go back to that source file in Excel, let's go ahead and just go ahead and close this here. But if I go back to that performance data spreadsheet, and I just go to this last column, if I wanted to put this in a different column, or sorry, in a different folder, I can do this. So New York would no longer be in the Fresh folder. It would just be on my desktop. And maybe Toronto would be on a shared drive. And maybe Beijing would be in a different folder. So you really have the power to do all of this. So this is the idea behind SlideMerge. Thank you.